In the midst of the courtyard, Hanli's gaze shifted to the middle-aged man whose face seemed to be formed from one of the transient guild's mystical masks. These masks, seemingly ordinary, connected their wearers in subtle ways, enabling silent communication among the guild members. Worm 9 and Worm 16, sensing the same, entered the courtyard without hesitation, prompting Hanli to follow after a moment's pause. Once inside, the middle-aged man quickly surveyed the surroundings and shut the door behind them. The courtyard, sprawling over 1,000 feet, was barren aside from a gnarled tree, a set of stone tables and stools beneath it, and meticulously clean tiles, unmarred by even a single leaf. A large central room stood opposite the entrance, with several booths flanking it, their doors slightly ajar. The middle-aged man led the way, pausing to inquire, "I've heard more reinforcements are arriving. Who leads this mission?" As soon as the question left his lips, Hanli's instincts flared. His eyes gleamed with cold intent, and without warning, his fist flew toward the man. The middle-aged man, seemingly prepared, unleashed a burst of red light from his back, forming a shimmering silver shield to block the strike. A loud crash rang out as the shield shattered, sending the man hurtling backward into the stone stairs. Blood spurted from his mouth, and his aura noticeably weakened. Worm 9 and Worm 16, sensing danger, moved to act, but before they could respond, the air around them vibrated with a faint buzzing. The space around the courtyard twisted, and a great crimson array materialized in the sky, surging with runes. Without warning, red light surged, and Hanli's group found themselves transported into a vast crimson space. The scene was a surreal and unsettling one, with a sky overhead filled with dark crimson clouds, and the ground beneath them a sickly shade of red. A foul, blood-laden scent hung in the air, seeping into their senses. As they surveyed the area, the ground split open in numerous places, from which twisted blood ghosts crawled out, their skin flayed, emitting chilling cries as they attacked. "Stay vigilant," Worm 9 warned, eyeing the blood ghosts and the ominous aura of the place. Hanli, sensing the strange energy of the space, maintained his calm despite the agitation it caused within him. The three of them prepared for battle. Worm 9 took a jade pendant and wore it around his neck. With a swift gesture, he summoned torrents of blue water, washing away several blood ghosts in a flash. Meanwhile, Worm 16 unleashed his transformation, growing larger and more formidable. Leaping high into the air, he crushed several blood ghosts beneath his weight. Hanli, feigning the act of consuming a pill, joined the fray, sending 2 blood ghosts flying with a swift punch. Despite their initial ease in dispatching the blood ghosts, the horde seemed endless, emerging from the rifts with relentless force. Surrounded, the 3 warriors found themselves trapped, but the middle-aged man, now bloodshot-eyed and frantic, unleashed his treasures. A set of array flags surrounded him, and crimson armor enveloped his body, forming multiple protective barriers that the blood ghosts relentlessly battered. Yet even with his defenses, the influence of the crimson space began to break him down. His grip on sanity faltered, and his sword swung wildly, his protective barriers weakening. Hanli, recognizing the danger, urgently warned the others, "The blood in the air grows thicker with every ghost slain. We must escape soon before we, too, fall victim." "Indeed, let us act swiftly," Worm 9 agreed, looking to Worm 16, who now stood ready to act. Worm 16, amidst the chaos, began preparing a ritual, summoning a triangular pyramid spike that emanated a profound energy, hinting at the power of immortal law. The others covered him, fending off the blood ghosts with deft strikes. As Worm 16 completed the ritual, the spike absorbed his blood, glowing crimson as spatial fluctuations intensified. Suddenly, an agonized howl erupted. The middle-aged man had been overwhelmed by the blood ghosts, and his nascent soul, frantic and deranged, ascended into the sky. But before it could escape, a dark purple bowl appeared from the crimson clouds. It circled above, releasing a powerful suction force that drew in the nascent soul. As it was absorbed, the soul disintegrated in a flash of red light, leaving behind only glowing black runes on the bowl's surface. The moment the nascent soul was consumed by the crimson bowl, a figure clad in purple robes erupted from its depths, his finger pointing at the vessel with unyielding precision. At his command, the runes upon the bowl flickered, unleashing a torrent of black light, which surged forth like a vengeful dragon, crashing toward Worm 16. The speed was so blinding that neither Han Li nor Worm 9 could intervene in time, their attention diverted by the blood ghosts. Caught in the midst of a crucial moment in his technique, Worm 16 had no choice but to shift the trajectory of his spike, facing it upwards to meet the oncoming beam. The crimson spike flared, its light growing intense, but before it could unleash its power, the beam collided with it, erupting in a violent explosion. A burst of crimson light blazed like a sun, sweeping away the blood mist and sending shockwaves that scattered the ghosts and forced Han Li and Worm 9 to fight their way toward their ally. As the crimson glow faded, they found Worm 16 collapsed, unconscious, his body pierced by black light beams that anchored him to the ground. The air crackled with thunder as an ominous presence descended from the heavens, lightning flashing around the purple-robed man who wielded the bowl with disdain. I knew reinforcements would come, but 3 true immortals? How fortunate for me. Surrender now if you wish to preserve your sanity, the man sneered coldly. If you don't want to die, release us, Worm 9 retorted, defiance in his voice. Even now, you dare speak so arrogantly? Let me teach you respect. The purple-robed elder laughed darkly. With a flick of his wrist, the bowl shot from his hand, summoning thunderous rumblings as hundreds of crimson lightning fire orbs rained down, shaking the ground. Each explosion left craters, and waves of searing flame and lightning engulfed the area, the heat rising like a field of blazing lotuses. Strangely, Worm 16 was spared the worst, but the flames roused him from his unconscious state with a scream of agony. Amid the chaos, Han Li weaved through the storm, dodging fireballs, though their fiery touch left searing pain behind. His blood surged with unbridled rage, yet he quelled it with inner discipline, his cool energy rising to calm his turbulent mind. Worm 9, battling the surging flames and blood ghosts, summoned a blue gourd, the glowing light forming a barrier of rippling water around him. Yet, he struggled against the onslaught of both flames and foes. Worm 9's face hardened as he summoned blood essence to empower the gourd, calling forth a legion of water warriors to drive back the ghosts. Through voice transmission, he urged Han Li to act. We cannot remain here. I'll hold him off. Go rescue Worm 16 and shatter this space. But Han Li did not respond, his actions swift and determined. With a few forceful strikes, he cleared his path, dodging the inferno as he sped toward a distant point, his purpose clear. Worm 9, furious, was intercepted by a beam of black light, forcing him into defensive maneuvers. He was helpless as Han Li sped away, leaving him to fend off further attacks. The purple-robed elder mocked their predicament. Your companion has abandoned you. It's too late to escape now. His words were full of cruel amusement. But as the elder spoke, Han Li was already moving, his fist crashing through the air with the force of thunder. A white rift split the crimson space wide open, and with a deafening crack, the entire array shattered, crumbling into nothingness. The battle was over in an instant. The trio found themselves back in Heavenly Water City. The body integration cultivators who had maintained the array lay unconscious, blood trickling from their orifices, their bodies on the verge of death. Worm 16, charred and injured, remained in the courtyard, while the purple-robed elder appeared grim, his rage barely contained. Han Li stood tall, his fists still crackling with power, as the elder's expression darkened with resentment. He had underestimated Han Li's strength, never anticipating that the weakest of the trio would strike at the heart of the array. In a desperate move, the elder raised his palm, sending ripples through the air that shattered the skulls of the fallen cultivators, drawing in their nascent souls. Yet one cultivator, protected by a treasure, resisted the fatal fate, but Elder's attention was already elsewhere. He thrust his bowl forward, unleashing beams of black light toward Han Li and Worm 9. Worm 9's gourd reacted swiftly, forming a vortex of water to deflect the attack. The shockwave sent him flying, but he managed to stabilize himself. Han Li, too, evaded the beam directed at him, but before they could regroup, the purple-robed elder vanished, leaving nothing but the faintest trace of resentment in his wake. The trio stood in silence for a brief moment, their senses sharpened by the aftermath of the battle. Han Li, swift as the wind, moved to assist Worm 16, who had fallen to the ravages of battle. He guided him upright and administered a healing pill. Worm 16 nodded his thanks, his body trembling from the exertion of his injuries, before settling into a meditative stance, absorbing the pill's restorative power. The battle's chaos still lingered in the air when Worm 9 descended like a shadow, landing beside a fallen body integration cultivator. With the precision of a master, his hand shot out in a blur, snaring the man's head in a crushing grip. Blue light flickered ominously as the cultivator's body grew limp, his nascent soul torn from its vessel with ease, ensnared within a shroud of blue radiance. Worm 9 carried the nascent soul back to the courtyard where Worm 16 sat, gazing coldly at the fragile soul before him. "I never expected you to be so skilled in array formations, fellow Taoist," Worm 9 remarked, his voice a mixture of surprise and respect. "I feared you were abandoning the fray, but my earlier judgment was hasty. Forgive my rashness." Hanli offered a humble smile, his voice warm. "You flatter me, fellow Taoist. It was not expertise in arrays, but a mere coincidence that I found the array's flaw. Your efforts in distracting the layman Immortal gave me the chance to act." Worm 9 did not linger on the matter, his gaze shifting to the nascent soul, now trembling in his grasp. With a swift motion, dark threads of energy shot from his palm, piercing the soul. The nascent soul writhed in agony, releasing a pained cry, but Worm 9 remained unmoved, his fingers twisting as more threads surged into the soul. Yet the soul's cries began to weaken, its form growing hazy and transparent. Hanli's expression shifted to one of alarm as he observed the unfolding event. Before he could speak, the nascent soul exploded in a burst of translucent light, disintegrating into countless specks. "It seems a restriction was placed upon it," Hanli murmured, "a trap for those who dared pry into its secrets." Worm 9's expression darkened. "Indeed. No useful information was gleaned. However, it seems the transient guild members we encountered here have all been slain by the enemy." Hanli's brows furrowed in contemplation. "What now, then?" Worm 16, now partially recovered, rose to his feet. "We searched this city thoroughly. Our cover has been blown, so we no longer need to remain hidden." The trio's hunt continued, and soon they found themselves in a desolate stone hall. The atmosphere was thick with a sense of foreboding. Upon their arrival, they discovered 3 shriveled corpses, victims of a gruesome death, their faces frozen in terror. Azure masks, akin to those worn by Hanli's group, lay discarded beside the bodies. The scene was a clear message from the enemy. "These must be the infiltrators from the guild," Worm 9 remarked, his eyes cold as he examined the bodies. One was a Grand Ascension cultivator, the others at the body integration stage, a swift death, with not even their nascent souls spared. This was the work of that layman Immortal we faced earlier, aided by some unknown power of laws, Hanli mused, his gaze lingering on the distorted faces of the deceased. Could this be a trap set by Gong Shuhong? Worm 16's voice was laced with bitterness. "No time for dwelling on that," Worm 9 interjected. "There, we can find no more answers here. We must inform Worm 3 and determine our next steps." With a flick of his wrist, Worm 9 activated his mask, sending out a pulse of blue light. The mask flickered before it returned a response. Worm 3, the one who commanded their forces, had given orders for them to regroup at Dragon Lake City. As they prepared to leave, Hanli caught sight of the elegant flying ark summoned by Worm 9, a sleek vessel of translucent blue shimmering with the energy of the blue sky cloud crystal. "This is a fine craft," Hanli praised, eyeing the ship with approval. Worm 9 chuckled. "It is merely a spirit treasure, not immortal grade, but swift enough for our needs. Worm 16, rest and recover. We shall need our strength for the battles ahead." With that, the ark surged forward, cutting through the air like a streak of light, heading toward Dragon Lake City. Upon their arrival, they made their way to a secluded estate. Worm 9 shared the details of their encounter with Worm 3, and the bodies of the Transient Guild infiltrators were laid out before him. The sight of their withered forms did not escape the gaze of Worm 3, whose expression darkened at the grim sight. As the blue arc vanished into the distance, the shadows of war continued to close in on them, and the next chapter of their journey awaited. The group stood over the fallen bodies, their faces grim as Worm 9 spoke. "They were like this when we found them. It's likely the work of the same layman Immortal who ambushed us," he said, his eyes narrowing as he withdrew from the grisly scene. Worm 3 added solemnly, Upon reaching our destinations, Worm 8 and I found that all the infiltrators had vanished. The air was thick with tension as Worm 8 spoke next, recounting their findings. Our investigation shows that the pilgrimage is likely a ruse, a scheme by Gong Shuhong to gather power from his followers. He paused, then added, "Did you hear about the chosen ones? They don't return to their cities, but are instead taken to another place, one of greater fertility. This only deepens the mystery." Hanli's voice cut through the murmur of thoughts. Could it be that Gong Shuhong has manipulated us with false information? Maybe he is already aware of our presence here. Worm 9 nodded, adding, "It's possible. He has no doubt been preparing for our arrival. That said, we should move forward. I believe Red Moon City may hold the answers we seek." Worm 8 shook his head, speaking with a slight hint of frustration. "There are many Red Moon cities on this island, one in nearly every province. We discovered this while passing through, and though we initially dismissed it, it's clear now that Gong Shuhong has been hiding the true location of the one we seek." With jade slips in hand, the group examined the additional information. The map had been deliberately misleading, it seemed, and the puzzle deepened. Gong Shuhong's careful misdirection made their task even more daunting. Still, Worm 3 took charge, his voice unwavering. "We'll start by checking these cities. Everyone, prepare to move out." The group took to the skies, though Han Li made a brief stop to gather more intelligence, returning shortly with a stack of books. They continued onward, heading toward Red Moon City in the Wave Province, their minds sharpened by the knowledge they had gained. As they approached the city, Worm 8 observed the imposing blue restriction around it, murmuring, "This is the famed 1,000-light illusory ripple restriction. It may not be strong in defense, but its sensitivity to spiritual senses is unmatched." They landed and mingled with the crowds entering the city, keeping their true identities concealed. Inside, the city was alive with people, all gathered around a grand statue in the center of a massive plaza, their worship filling the air with a solemn atmosphere. "This must be the pilgrimage," Han Li mused, his sharp eyes scanning the throngs of people. Yet, as he observed further, it became clear that the city was filled with nothing but mortals and low-grade cultivators. None of them seemed to be the targets they sought. Worm 8, however, remained resolute. "Even so, we must search the city. Perhaps we will uncover something." The group split up, and Han Li made his way down a quiet street, his form cloaked in a subtle concealment technique. He passed by a bookshop, entering briefly to gather further knowledge before resuming his search. Despite the vastness of the city, hours passed without any sign of what they sought. They regrouped later, their expressions heavy. "It appears this city is not the one we're looking for," Worm 8 said with a sigh. "But let's not waste any more time." Just as they were about to leave, Worm 25 spoke up, his voice tight with focus. "There's something strange underground here." The group paused, their eyes narrowing as they turned to Worm 25, who crouched, his body radiating with ripples that vanished into the earth below. The next clue had revealed itself. The ground trembled as the cultivators stood in anticipation, their eyes gleaming with anticipation. Worm 8 hastily inquired, a spark of excitement igniting within him. "Did you uncover something beneath us?" Worm 25, standing tall and composed, smiled. "I suggest you all take a glance at what's buried 1,000 feet below." At his signal, all the cultivators released their spiritual senses, their gazes lighting up in unison as they detected an enormous, man-made underground cavity below. Worm 8's eyes shone with admiration. "Your keen attention to detail saved us from overlooking this, fellow Taoist." "You're too kind," Worm 25 replied modestly. "My cultivation art grants me heightened sensitivity to the earth beneath." Without further words, Worm 8 led the group down into the cavern, with Worm 25 following closely behind. The others, including Han Li's trio, remained on the surface for a moment longer. Worm 9's discontent was evident, and he hesitated before descending into the depths. Han Li exchanged a glance with Worm 16, who nodded subtly, and they too followed. The underground space was vast, the floor paved with smooth blue stone slabs, an eerie quiet blanketing the area. The air felt damp, laced with a faint scent of blood and a strange, sinister yin aura. Han Li crouched to examine the soil beneath the slabs, his fingers brushing over the dark red earth. "This soil is tainted with a hint of black," he muttered. "No doubt, many lives were extinguished here," he mused, his face contemplative. "The blood scent and this yin aura suggest something sinister." Worm 16 pondered, "Could this be a site for disposing of enemies?" Hanli shook his head. Why construct such an elaborate site for mere executions? He felt something deeper was at play here, though he couldn't place it. Meanwhile, Worm 9 seemed keen to solve the mystery through more direct means. "We can capture someone and interrogate them for answers," he suggested, his eyes narrowing with cold resolve. With a swift motion, Worm 9 summoned a small yellow flag that disappeared into the ceiling. Moments later, a cultivator from the nascent soul stage, patrolling Red Moon City, was ensnared by a yellow hand and dragged underground. The cultivator was deposited in the cavern, his expression frozen in terror, as Worm 9 bound him with a seal, preventing his movement or sound. With a cruel sneer, Worm 9 released black threads into the man's mind. The cultivator's face contorted in pain as blood leaked from his eyes and mouth, but Worm 9 showed no mercy, continuing his soul search. A dull thump echoed as the cultivator's soul self-destructed, and his body fell limp. As expected, Worm 9 said coldly, "A nascent soul cultivator wouldn't have known much." Worm 8 scoffed, "There's no point staying here. We move on to the next city." He rose and ascended into the air, leading his group, with Worm 9 following shortly after. Several days later, they arrived at another Red Moon city, surrounded by an enormous blue barrier and situated beside an inland sea. The spectacle of countless ships moving about was mesmerizing, but the city itself, like the others, held no real surprises. The group landed outside the city and infiltrated it, their steps quiet as they moved through its crowded streets, filled with pilgrims. Hanli surveyed the city with his bright-sight spirit eyes, but found no signs of high-grade cultivators. The search, it seemed, had been a waste of time. Worm 9, eager for progress, led Hanli and Worm 16 into the heart of the city. Their eyes darted about, searching for any clue that might lead them closer to their target. With time running out, Hanli's gaze flickered toward a bookshop. The shop, sparsely attended due to the pilgrimage, beckoned him inside. "Can I help you?" the portly shopkeeper asked, his eyes gleaming with a hidden intent. "I seek old maps or geography books," Hanli requested. The shopkeeper's eyes betrayed a fleeting flicker of something unnatural, but he quickly masked it. Hanli, sharp as ever, caught the brief change in the man's expression. He used his spiritual sense to ensnare the shopkeeper's will, compelling him to reveal the oldest maps in the store. Under Hanli's gaze, the shopkeeper handed him a tome, old and worn, its cover cracked. The pages, made of beast hide, were yellowed with age. As Hanli flipped through the book, his heart quickened. This map, unlike the others, held more secrets. Later, the group regrouped, each member visibly frustrated from the fruitless search. "Are we truly going to search this island endlessly?" Worm 21 muttered bitterly. "We'll find him," Worm 8 reassured them. "There are only 20 or so Red Moon cities. We will uncover the truth, one by one." As the group prepared to leave for the next city, Hanli spoke up, his voice steady. "I believe I found something." The group gathered around as Hanli conjured a light screen depicting a map of the island, familiar, yet more detailed. Worm 8 and Worm 9 stared at it, intrigued, as the rest of the group exchanged confused glances. This map held a new lead, perhaps the key to finally unearthing Gong Shuhong's whereabouts. Hanli smiled knowingly as he addressed his companions. "The map you saw earlier had its flaws. It failed to mark the large bodies of water, which are not depicted in any publicly sold maps on this island. I've taken the time to update this map, marking all the key rivers and lakes we've encountered during our journey." His words caused the group to inspect the map again, noting that many bodies of water, including rivers and lakes, were notably absent from the original version. "I've gathered this information over several days, visiting multiple cities and recovering old maps from each," Hanli continued, flicking his finger. The light screen shimmered, revealing large rivers drawn across the map. "These rivers are not mere features, but critical to understanding the lay of the land. Notably, every Red Moon city we've passed is near a major water source, confirming my findings." Worm 13 interrupted, skepticism in his voice. That's hardly surprising. Many cities are built near water for practical reasons. Han Li nodded thoughtfully. True, but when I enchanted a local bookshop owner here, he revealed that all maps showing these bodies of water are banned. An edict by Gong Shuhong himself. Clearly, he's concealing something. Worm 13 was momentarily silent, unable to counter this discovery. Han Li then pointed to a location on the map, a city positioned near the convergence of several rivers. This is where the bodies of water converge, and it's highly likely Gong Shuhong is hiding there. Worm 25 voiced his doubt. You cannot be sure. I can't be certain, Han Li acknowledged. But it's better than wandering aimlessly, don't you think? He glanced around at his companions, all of whom seemed to agree with his reasoning. Worm 9 spoke up, enthusiasm lighting his face. That makes perfect sense. If we hadn't found this, we'd still be clueless. I agree, Worm 16 added. If we search all the cities one by one, Gong Shuhong will have already moved on. We must thank fellow Taoist Worm 15 for this insight. With nods of approval, the group decided to proceed toward Kun Province. A few days later, Han Li's group approached the Red Moon city of Kun Province, flying through the night skies. The city before them shimmered with a strange crimson glow, its massive walls encased by a blue light barrier tinged red by the surrounding lights. Looks like Gong Shuhong could be here, Worm 9 mused. Worm 8 directed the group with caution. We must not use our spiritual senses once we enter the city. Ignoring this order, Worm 9 moved on, and the others followed in silence, their disguises helping them blend into the night. They entered the city through the southern gate, joining the thousands of pilgrims streaming toward the center. The city itself was lit by red lanterns, casting an eerie glow. The pilgrims walked in quiet reverence, heading toward the massive plaza in the center. Han Li's group, squeezed in the crowd, slowly made their way through, drawing no attention due to the solemnity around them. Upon reaching the plaza, Han Li gazed at the enormous crimson statue at its center. 7 blue-robed figures floated before it, their robes marked with the symbol of a crescent moon. They exuded an ethereal aura, and though their cultivation was not particularly high, they were treated as deities by the surrounding masses. The elderly man in the center of the group began to speak, his voice carrying an air of authority. Those who are devout will be chosen for higher honors. The divine selection begins now. Pray for your selection. A wave of fervent cheers erupted from the crowd, and everyone bowed in unison, hands clasped in prayer. Han Li's group followed suit, attempting to blend in. Suddenly, the ground beneath them trembled slightly, and a series of complex, invisible patterns lit up in the air. Crimson pillars of light shot up from the plaza, enveloping the selected individuals. Strangely, those caught in the light seemed overjoyed, even tearful with happiness, while onlookers admired them with envy. Han Li turned to Worm 9 and Worm 16, puzzled. Could this be the so-called divine selection? He asked. Worm 9 thought for a moment. It must be, but where are they being taken? Han Li smiled knowingly. The selection may seem random, but there's method to it. We can follow these chosen ones to find our answer. As the red light bathed the gathering, Worm 16 sharply observed, these individuals are either low-grade cultivators or possess spiritual roots. Han Li nodded, his plan forming swiftly. Indeed, we'll pass as low-grade cultivators to infiltrate. Worm 9 raised a concern. Could this destination be linked to Gong Shuhong? Should we inform the others? Han Li dismissed the notion. Let's first uncover something before reaching out. The trio masked their auras, shifting to the Foundation establishment stage. They stood ready, awaiting the signature red light to claim them. Minutes passed, and the light swirled about, yet none touched them. Worm 9's skepticism surfaced, but Han Li remained calm. Patience. If we're still not chosen after the process ends, we'll use our spiritual senses. At that moment, a sudden surge of red light enveloped Worm 9, vanishing him from sight. Han Li, following suit, was whisked away with Worm 16. The world spun, and Han Li found himself in a cavernous underground palace, suffused with crimson flames in braziers that hung ominously from the stone pillars. Around them, the air was thick with prayerful chants from mortals and cultivators alike, their reverence palpable. The blood-soaked stone slabs underfoot darkened with each passing moment, and an oppressive aura clung to the air, Han Li's thoughts turned dark as he recalled the cursed yin soil beneath Land's Red Moon City. As he mulled over these unsettling memories, Worm 16 squeezed through the crowd, asking, "Found anything?" Han Li hesitated. "Clues, perhaps. Let's find Worm 9 first." They pushed through the mass of people, the stench of blood growing stronger. At the center of the palace, a statue of Gong Shu Hong loomed, and nearby, a muscular man in purple robes stood, exuding the oppressive air of a layman immortal. Han Li's sharp eyes caught sight of Worm 9, but before they could converge, the layman immortal raised his head, and all noise ceased. His voice rang out, "You have been chosen by the Holy Lord as his most devout followers." The crowd erupted into ecstatic cheers. The atmosphere turned somber as the man promised to bestow cultivation arts on the chosen. Han Li felt his suspicions grow, but before he could voice them, the statue trembled. Its crimson eyes flared, and two beams of red light swept across the crowd. The light washed over Han Li, and he sensed a faint spiritual presence. Strange, it wasn't the statue, but the purple-robed man releasing his spiritual sense. "This is just a ceremony," Han Li mused. "Gong Shu Hong isn't coming." As the beams of red light continued their selection, Han Li observed the individuals chosen. They were exceptional, both in cultivation and aptitude, though not all were cultivators. Over 200 individuals were selected, each one standing out among the masses. Han Li's mind raced as all the pieces fell into place. This isn't a divine selection, it's a sacrificial gathering. He transmitted his realization to Worm 9 and Worm 16. Worm 9's voice crackled with alarm. "What did you uncover?" Worm 16, puzzled, asked, "What makes you say that, Han Li?" Han Li's face tightened as the truth dawned upon him. This place, it's not a place of honor. It's a sacrificial site for some darker purpose. In the depths of the underground palace, the air was thick with the stench of blood, and the very earth had transformed into yin soil, evidence of the place's grim purpose. Han Li's face darkened as he revealed the grim truth to his companions. The living beings brought here, cultivators and mortals alike, were likely sacrifices to fuel the dark cultivation practices of Gong Shu Hong. Worm 16 speculated that the blood-cultivating Gong Shu Hong required such sacrifices to sustain his strength, while Worm 9 questioned why they were being selected rather than immediately offered. Han Li hypothesized that the chosen ones, those with exceptional cultivation potential, would be groomed to serve Gong Shu Hong directly, with their souls likely bound to secrecy. Before they could plan further, a buzzing sound pierced the air, and crimson patterns spread across the walls, twisting like webs. These patterns soon bloomed into eyes, glowing with an eerie crimson light. Watching all present, the air grew thick with the stench of blood, and a pulse of crimson light erupted from the eyes, sending beams of light surging through the underground space. The group immediately activated their protective treasures, each one reacting swiftly to shield themselves. Han Li summoned his true extreme membrane, along with a yellow mirror and azure jade pendant, while Worm 9 created layers of blue ripples around him, and Worm 16 summoned a glowing azure umbrella to envelop himself in protection. The layman immortal, startled by the appearance of the crimson eyes, summoned his own crimson flag to form a barrier around him. But no matter the defense, the crimson beams cut through with ease, entering the bodies of all in the space. As the beams struck, strange fluctuations of law twisted within their bodies. Han Li, sensing the intrusion, inspected his condition but found the crimson light had vanished within him, leaving him with an ominous sense of unease. Suddenly, his heart began to race uncontrollably, his blood flowing faster, and his magic power became erratic. His companions shared similar discomfort, as blood-curdling screams echoed through the space. The weaker cultivators and mortals, struck by the beams, exploded into a mist of blood, leaving behind only a haunting cloud that hung heavily in the air. As the blood mist swirled, the underground space cleared, revealing Worm 8 and his group, who had somehow infiltrated the area. The reunion was bittersweet, as the group now realized they were trapped by Gong Shu Hong's machinations, the crimson eyes an ominous sign of the dark trap they had fallen into. The crimson beams continued to rain down, each one causing a violent surge within the bodies of the trapped immortals. Han Li, having attained a true extreme body, was still holding his ground, but the pressure was mounting. Worm 9, desperate, summoned a blue flying dagger, transforming it into a massive blade that collided with the stone ceiling. But as soon as it struck, a vast crimson barrier erupted, rendering the attack useless. At that moment, Worm 16 unleashed a black spike from his body, which crackled with dark lightning and trembled the very space around them. A violent eruption of black energy followed, as the group's hopes of escape dwindled with each passing moment. The battle raged on as Worm 16 raised his hand, sending a bolt of black lightning from his spike that crashed into the crimson barrier, shaking the air with its force. Worm 9's blue blade flared with radiant light, and Hanley's fists joined in the assault, all striking the barrier in unison. The clash reverberated with thunderous noise, and the crimson light bent but did not break. Then, the walls began to pulse with crimson energy as the vast blood cloud above churned violently. Blood mist spilling out and disappearing into the walls, amplifying the crimson light barrier above. The crimson patterns thickened, and the eyes on the walls widened ominously, intensifying the oppressive pressure on them. Hanli could feel the powerful surge of law energy flooding his body, his heartbeat quickening. Despite his immense strength, even he felt the strain and quickly activated his Big Dipper origin arts to bolster his defenses. Starlight enveloped him, stabilizing his heartbeat. Meanwhile, Worm 9's condition deteriorated. In desperation, he summoned his earthly deity avatar, a black-robed figure surrounded by powerful blue light, which temporarily shielded him. However, Worm 16 wasn't so fortunate. He collapsed under the weight of the blood laws, his body convulsing before bursting into a violent explosion of blood mist, scattering his spiritual essence into the walls. The death of Worm 16 caused the power of the Crimson Laws to surge even more, and Hanli struggled to maintain control. In that dire moment, Worm 9's barrier dimmed as his body reached its limits. But just as he teetered on the edge of collapse, Hanli intervened. A single punch from him pierced through Worm 9's protective barrier, striking his heart with a rhythmic force that disrupted the chaotic laws within. The assault was precise, a well-timed strike that caused most of the destructive force to dissipate. Worm 9, though weakened, managed to regain some composure and turned to give Hanli a thankful nod. As the crimson eyes on the walls began to close and the light dimmed, Hanli and Worm 9 took a moment to breathe, their heartbeats finally returning to normal. Worm 8, though bloodied and battered, descended from the skies, his survival testament to his own formidable strength. Yet the air was thick with death as the stench of blood lingered, and the remains of their fallen comrades could be seen scattered across the underground expanse. 4 immortals had perished in that moment. The crimson platform at the center of the room had collapsed, revealing a dark hole from which emerged the same purple-robed man who had previously attacked them. Accompanying him were 2 more powerful figures, one a brawny, bearded man, and the other a grotesque young woman. All 3 exuded the aura of true immortals, their presence unmistakable and malevolent. The leader of the trio cast a cold smile upon Hanli and his companions, his gaze filled with cruel amusement. In the depths of an underground space, 3 purple-robed figures faced off against Hanli and his companions. Cho Wu, the elder among them, sneered upon recognizing Hanli. "This is the brat who broke my bloodlight space. At first, I thought it was mere luck, but now it seems there's more to him," he mused, narrowing his eyes. His companion, a woman in black, grinned, her voice raspy. "Take care of him, Cho Wu. We'll handle the others." Cho Wu chuckled, the air thick with tension. Hanli's group had already assessed their opponents, noting that although the 3 purple-robed figures were layman immortals of the early true immortal stage, they were still formidable, especially given that Lu Kun and Worm 8 were injured. "These must be Gong Shuhong's subordinates," Worm 8 whispered, his voice heavy. Hanli nodded grimly. "This place holds more dangers than we realize. We must end this swiftly." With a silent exchange, the battle erupted. A torrent of crimson blades shot toward them, but with a single step back, Hanli unleashed a devastating punch that shattered the attack. Before the light even faded, Cho Wu's trio split to engage their chosen opponents. Worm 8 faced a burly man, his face dark with determination. With a flourish, Worm 8 summoned his earthly deity avatar, a green-skinned figure bathed in azure light. The avatar inhaled deeply, summoning an azure wind dragon that roared into existence. The burly man sneered, summoning a sinister white bone gauntlet. A massive fist of spiritual energy clashed with the wind dragon, and the earth shook as the two forces collided. The wind dragon shattered, but the man pressed forward, his crimson shield protecting him as he barreled toward Worm 8. Meanwhile, Lu Kun grappled with the woman in black. She retreated, enveloped in a swirling cloud of black mist, her movements graceful as she conjured a lotus of shadow to rise upon. Lu Kun's earthly deity avatar emerged, its sword striking swiftly, but the woman was already gone, vanishing into the air. As these fierce battles unfolded, Han Li stood resolute before Cho Wu. "You're a profound immortal," Cho Wu remarked coldly, eyes flashing with intent. "Your true extreme body will serve perfectly for my blood puppet." Han Li's only response was a raised fist, a challenge gleaming in his eyes. Cho Wu's face darkened as he produced a dark purple bowl, chanting incantations that filled the air with an ominous energy. The bowl trembled, releasing a wave of blood that surged toward Han Li, its stench foul and suffocating. Ghostly faces writhed within the blood, their cries of anguish echoing through the chamber. Han Li responded quickly, summoning a round yellow mirror, which formed a protective barrier around him. The blood wave crashed into it, sending ripples through the barrier, but it began to sizzle as though the very essence of the blood was burning away the light. Despite the resistance, the wave of blood surged forward, overwhelming Han Li. Struggling within the sea of blood, his movement slowed as spectral figures closed in. With a mighty effort, Han Li unleashed a barrage of fist projections, clearing a path as golden scales appeared over his body, amplifying his strength. "Not so fast," Cho Wu hissed, manipulating the blood to trap Han Li, the temperature rising to scorching levels. The blood boiled around him, but Han Li, unshaken, summoned the Essence Fire Raven. Silver flames erupted, evaporating the blood as he began to rise from the sea of blood. Cho Wu, alarmed, tried to summon his bowl to block Han Li's escape, but Han Li was faster. With a crushing punch, he shattered the bowl's defense, sending shockwaves through Cho Wu's body. Blood dripped from his lips as he staggered back, his eyes wide with disbelief. "Impossible," he muttered, but before he could react, a shrill screech filled the air. The Essence Fire Raven descended upon him, its silver flames blazing, ready to finish the fight.